Hi, I'm Travis Ireland, founder of Run the World, and you're watching me on Run Forest Run TV. I'm Travis Ireland and I am an ultra runner. I've done recently the Butter 24-hour track event, 400 metre laps around a track for 24 hours. I did it as a test for the mind. I shouldn't say a training run because it was a race, but an event where I practiced and tried a lot of things in my running journey over a period of 24 hours. My goal was not to stop and not to rest and not to sit in the chair. And by doing so, I managed to walk. I had a run-walk strategy and I managed to cover officially on the track record 193 kilometres and more importantly on my Strava 201 kilometres. Difference being the journey you make to the toilets and to your tents and things like that. But officially 193 kilometres covered in 24 hours, and it was one of those days where it just exceeded my expectations. Everything worked, nothing went wrong. I was thrown some curveballs with a massive storm, some interesting ankle pain issues I'd never had before, and then obviously the mental demons of the last few hours when things start to hurt. But very proud of what I achieved and happy to say that I'm now a track runner, an ultra runner, a 24-hour runner. And part of me running is a company that I founded and now passionately own and run, and that's Run the World, where I ask people to get out and challenge themselves for distance as well. Not about time. I'm asking people to get out and run as often as they can, as fast as they want, wherever they like, and I'll track them on a journey around the map of their choice. Run the World provides 8 different maps from Australia, USA, Canada, some long maps around East Asia, and a couple of shorter ones in New Zealand and the UK and Ireland. And I ask people to run, record your data, and then it'll track you on a journey around that country of your choice. The goal being to achieve something pretty epic in finishing a lap around Australia or a lap around New Zealand, whatever that may be. I'm asking you to be consistent. It's a long-term commitment to running and walking. Run the World is designed to keep you running, keep you moving and walking towards a massive goal. So it's www.runsoftheworld.com. Check it out, come join us. Growing up in a very small town in the south coast of New South Wales, a place called Merimbula, sport was an integral part of my life, and running was also an integral part of my life. I don't know the day I started running, I don't remember that specifically, but I've always run. I remember in grades 1 and 2 and 3 at primary school being part of the cross country. Never wanting to pull out, always wanting to do well. If I fast forward, a big part of that was my competitive nature. I wanted to win. I never did. But I also loved the camaraderie, and a story comes when we got to high school. Through primary school and high school, we had the same 5 of us friends. Again, it's a small town that would run cross country and come 1st to 5th. I was often 4th or 5th around that, and my 3 mates ahead of me, one went on to be an Australian representative and the other 2 quite talented, from a little town in Merimbula. And we would always travel to regionals, the 5 of us, and quite often we would then go to the next level. I think it's districts, I'm testing my memory then, and then states. I only made states once, and I remember coming second last at states, but the 5 of us all made it to state that year. I must have been in maybe year 9, I think it was. And that carried through my entire young years. Running was competitive, but it was also that camaraderie of us guys. We'd train together, we'd get on that bus together, we'd play footy together, we'd play soccer together, we'd play cricket together. Every day I was doing something. We're talking 40 odd years ago now, so technology wasn't the same, so there wasn't as much to do. And being a small town, I'd just leave the house, go to footy training, soccer training, cricket training, whatever it was. I'd play tennis, squash in the afternoons. There was always a sporting reason for me to leave in the house. It was never to go and do drugs or to muck around or anything like that. Even if I was going to muck around, it'd be a game of rock. I'd see if I could hit my mates with a rock and see how fast I could run away from them. It was a challenge. It was a competitive nature. It was something physical and sporting related, and that's how my running started. I was never competitive as an athlete, but I played footy and soccer at a semi-level where I would travel to rep teams and things like that. Never major, but I would travel and rep teams, and I loved getting on that bus and going away to Kiama and staying up there for 4 days in a soccer camp. Or going to Sydney to try out for some junior Aussie Rules representative team. It was the camaraderie of going away, and that's what's always brought me back to running, is running with people, running around people, being part of it. I then had my university years where I didn't run as much. I still ran, I still played a bit of footy, and then became a triathlete when I moved up to the Gold Coast. And triathlon became my new passion. So I would ride and swim and run as much as I could. But running took a slightly backward step as I became a triathlete. And part of that running was half marathons. When I moved up here in the Gold Coast, I ran 5 or 6 half marathons, the longest I'd ever run. And I had a family, and then I had an accident. I had some medical issues that forced me to pass out in some events, and this is going back a long time ago, and I passed out in a couple of half marathons where I just had to go to hospital and get a drip, so nothing too major. But then in the Noosa Triathlon, I passed out half a kilometre before the finish line and completely unconscious for 35 minutes, and I was in intensive care for 2 days up in Noosa or Nambour Hospital. And that was the last straw. I had a young family. I remember in the hospital, I couldn't remember names. I went through a bit of a rough spell. I came back, I tried to run a bit more, and then I passed out in a 10K run, and that was the end. I've still got that framed on my wall at home. That's when my mum and my wife at the time came and said, "Time for you to stop, Trav." So I stopped. That was, I forget the year, maybe 1990 something. Anyway, I forget the year, but it's on my wall. I did crack 40 minutes. I did 39:59, but there's a picture of me on the front page of the paper, collapsed on the ground and then taken to the medical tent. So that was it, and I had 12 years off running. I had a family, I concentrated on work. But when I say 12 years off, I would probably go for a 5K run every now and again, but I didn't run. And coincidentally, I went into a state of, it's not depression, but I became a gambling addict. It was the unhappiest I'd ever been in my life. I lost my marriage, I lost everything I owned, and not directly saying that it was a result of me not running, but I know it played a part in my gambling addiction and the subsequent loss of my marriage and everything I owned. And in that time, I sat there and I went through some dark times, and I remember sitting on the floor of a rental house. It wasn't even a rental, someone lent it to me because I had no money. And I had two options, and I looked at the fridge where I could have gone and drunk some beer, and I looked at my running shoes and I went for a run. And I distinctly remember running. I was at Sanctuary Cove, went for a run, whatever it was, and decided that was going to be me again. I was going to run. As part of my addiction, I went to rehab, and part of the rules were find something to replace that addiction. And I created Run the World. I thought I wanted to run around Australia myself, but logistically with my young family and what I was going through and no money, it wasn't going to happen. So I did it virtually, and I built an app. Oh, it wasn't an app back then, it was a spreadsheet, but it was a concept of running around Australia. And that's when my love of running was reignited and reborn. And it was thanks to what I'd been through. One of my favourite sayings is that rock bottom is the perfect foundation on which to build. and I started building again from where I was. And I built small steps. I had an Excel spreadsheet. I had 700 members of Run the World, a vision, and then I built it from there to now sit where I am, where I have a brand new app, a community of almost 8,000 people. My running is at a level it's never been before in my life, and it's as a result of what I went through, and it's as a result of me building an app and a community called Run the World that has brought me to where I am now. So part of my progression of running is that year by year I've increased my distance. I never had an ambition of being an ultra runner, and even 7 years ago I would question why people run 50Ks and 60Ks, but through the culmination of doing a 50K, then doing some backyard ultras, which is my new passion, did my first 100K, I decided to do a track event. It was, and it still is, it was a training run. I know that sounds stupid and maybe a little arrogant, but my main race is 7 weeks away. I'm doing another backyard ultra. So Butter 24 hour on June the 1st was my training run for my race in 7 weeks time. So June the 1st, it was still a race, don't get me wrong. I still planned for it. I was meticulous in my lead up. I trained for it. I had a spreadsheet, but it was a chance for me to test myself ready for my backyard ultra in 7 weeks. So I got nervous, as you should in a race. I didn't sleep the night before, but I was confident that I'd done everything right. Mentally, people asked me how I was. Mentally, I was ready to go. I was spot on ready to go. I was a little concerned physically. I'd never run for 24 hours straight. I had run for 24 hours over a backyard ultra. So I was a little concerned with how physically I'd go, but mentally I was excited and ready to go. So I rocked up. Lucky I was by myself. My partner and my famous crew member, Kath, she had a prior engagement, so she couldn't get there at the start. So it was up to me to get to the start line, and lucky she wasn't there because she would have hated it. I went through, I forgot things, I had to go back home a few times. The race started at 10 o'clock. I got there at 9:20. I still had to set up a marquee, get all my stuff out, but I was relaxed. I was in a good spot. Even when they said 90 seconds to go, I realized I hadn't gone to the toilet. So I rushed to the toilet, and I could hear them doing the 30-second countdown as I walked out. Mentally, I was just ready. Nothing really fazed me, so I was ready to go. And I made an effort of being in my happy place for that 24 hours, and that was from the word go. So lap 1, I smiled, and I tried to keep that for the entire 24 hours. I mentioned the physical part of it. Early on, about 4 hours in, I got a strange pain in my ankle, which I'd never had before. And it was quite sharp and it was quite excruciating. And at 4 hours, I went to Kath and I said, something's not right. I don't feel right in my ankle, in my body. How am I going to get through the next 20 hours? We looked at each other and thought, well, you don't have to worry about that. Think about how you're going to get through this next lap. And my whole mentality changed. I was in a pretty tough spot at that 4 hour mark, concerned what was going to happen for 20 hours. But just that little conversation we had, and we were aside, there's lots of people there. I just pulled her aside and we just had a quick chat. I thought, yeah, I just got to get through the next lap. And I'm going to change direction soon. And all this positivity came back into my head. And for the next 16 hours, 17 hours, I was in such a great spot and nothing could get me out of that. We had a massive storm come through. Tents were blowing over. It rained for an hour and a half, pretty heavy. Never got cold, but it was uncomfortable. I had a few little niggles along the way, but I was in such a positive place, and mentally I was so happy with where I was going. Stuck to my plan. I had a run-walk strategy, so I stuck to that. Never wavered from it, despite people running past me, and was so happy with how I was going. And then it dawned on me with 6 hours to go that maybe I can achieve more than what I thought. So I then changed tact into maybe running a little bit more than my plan said. The last 6 hours was a pretty relaxed, bit more walking. So I upped it and I planned to do 41 kilometers in the last 6 hours, and I managed to do 45 kilometers in those last 6 hours. I ran a lot more and was just exceeded all my expectations. The last 2 hours got tough. I had to do 14 kilometers in 2 hours to reach a bit of a new goal that I'd set myself. And that was 200 Ks on my watch. I know it wasn't official, but that was my goal. So I managed to do that and then get an extra K1.5. Even as I hit that 200, I still wasn't going to stop. I thought I would. I thought I'd stop and just walk it in for the last 15 minutes, but I managed to get another 1.5 Ks and even ran with my rock as he counted down the 10 seconds. I eked out every single step I could. And then when I finished, I was really concerned as to how I was going to feel because physically I just didn't know. But I looked around the track and people were on the ground, but I could still walk, I could still smile. I walked back to my tent. Yeah, it was just a perfect day. It was for something I'd never done before. I had expectations and I exceeded all of those. So to run 193 Ks officially and 201 on the watch, it was just a perfect day. It puts me in good stead now for my race, my A race in 7 weeks time now. Gives me a lot of confidence. So a job well done. I'm proud of myself. Okay, so my training leading up to the ultras that I do is not so much about speed because my goal is simply getting distance in time. So my training is all about time on feet and distance per week. So I don't really I'm a little relaxed in my training in that I don't have exact set days of what I'm going to do. I have a goal for each week. So I build that up. I'm smart enough to know that I'm still developing as an ultra runner. So at the start of the year, I was around the 70 to 80 K a week mark and gradually built up towards 100, 110, 120, 130, and I peaked at 140 kilometre week. And that week would just entail running one long run, one hill run, and one speed run. And the rest was just making up the distance. So I'd get out and do my hill run, which would be long. I'd get out and do maybe 15 to 20 Ks in the trails in Nerang. Wednesday, I would do a speed session and I'd go and do a group with Adzi on a Wednesday morning. And then my long run would be whatever my long run was planned. And I had that also set out that it progressed. So I did a 30K long run in January, a 40K in February, up to 50K in March, and then would go from there back to back. So I might do 2 30Ks to make a 60K weekend. But my goal was simply to hit whatever that target was that week. So I've got a schedule for 100K week. I'll work it out as I go during the week. So I might do 15 to 20 in Nerang, and then I realise I need to do 14 rather than 12 the next day, and then maybe 18 on a Thursday, and then it leaves me with 5 on a Sunday. I always have a day off, and that's just me mentally. I'm not a streak runner. I love nothing more than the mental knowledge of not having to run one day a week. It's amazing to sleep in, know that you don't have to run. There are days when I run 7 days a week if I need to, but majority of the time it's 6 days a week, 100K week. So now I'm going to build back up after Butter. I've had a couple of weeks off. Next week will be 80Ks, 100, and then I'll get into a couple of longer weeks in my main training block before my race. And there'll be some longer runs in there. I'll get an 80K run in at some stage in July. Haven't figured out exactly, but that's the run. And it'll be broken up. It's not a straight out 80K run. I might do some laps. I might have a break in the middle, but it'll be 80Ks. And that is me, time on feet. I don't look at the watch for speed. Some days if I feel crap, I'll walk a bit and I'll treat it like a backyard ultra and I'll do some run walk sessions. If I'm feeling great, I'll run 5-minute 15 pace for a run and really feel good for 15Ks. But the majority of my runs are slow, long, time on feet. And that's me. So my goal for this year, and it was set last year, was another backyard ultra and to go as far as I can. I've done 2 of them. So a backyard ultra, for those who may not know, is 6.71 kilometers every hour on the hour. You take as long as you like to do that 6.71 kilometers. If it takes you 50 minutes, you sit and wait for 10 minutes back in the starting corral, ready to go on the hour every hour. If you time out, so you take more than an hour, you get DNF'd. If you don't go back to the start line, so you finish a lap, but sit in your chair and don't go to the start line, you're a DNF. There's rules out there. There's no support allowed. If you get caught with any support, you're a DNF. So basically, once you get to that start line, you have just yourself to get 6.71 Ks back, do it, and then back again. So I've done 2. My first one was 19 hours, and my second one was 25 hours. And the first one was my first one, so I understand I was tired, I did a lot of things wrong. But my second one, I'm really disappointed that I stopped. because I set myself a goal of 24 hours and then I said to myself, just do one more. And because I set myself a goal, my mind then said, well, that's enough, Trav, you're done. And I'm quite confident I could have kept going, and I'm disappointed I didn't. So my next goal is just to go. And with that, this is going to sound arrogant, but the mentality just has to be, I want to win it. And that means I just have to go as long as I do until I win, till there's no one left. And that way I don't set a limit on myself. And if I stop because my leg's fallen off, then that's understandable. If I stop because I fall asleep on the track and not pass out, but just can't get up, then so be it. But I'm not having a limit on myself. I'm not saying I'm going to get to 48 and that's enough. I'm going to try and win it. And you have to have that mentality to push yourself as far as you go. And you have to then believe it. So that's my goal, is to win Birdie's Backyard on August the 2nd over in WA. Let's see how I go. So Run the World, it started in 2014 as Run Down Under. It was just one map to run around Australia. It quickly came that it was a popular thing to do, to run around Australia virtually. Many people probably had the same idea as me, that it was a great goal, but quite unachievable realistically. So to do it virtually, it grew from there. So numbers grew, and I got introduced to people that were a lot faster than me, did a lot more kilometers. And a guy called Stephen Wright finished the map. So a guy called Stephen Wright finished the map in a year and 11 months. And it blew my mind away that someone could run that much. And as he was getting close to his finish, I thought, well, what is he going to do next? So I built another map, a second map of Australia. So it was still Run Down Under. And then when Stephen finished, his finish line in Sydney was then the start of Run Down Under 2, which was a completely different route and another 15,000 kilometres. From that, I then thought, well, people are going to finish the map, so I'll need to build more maps. So in 2016, I built Run Around Europe and Run USA, both large maps. From there, more and more people joined. I was up now around 4,000 people joining, and I got some feedback that perhaps I needed to have some smaller maps. So whenever Brexit was, I think it was 2019, I decided to split the UK and Ireland from Europe and have them as two separate maps. And I also built New Zealand. So I then had maps that were smaller. Now when I say smaller comparatively. So New Zealand is still 4,710 kilometres and the UK and Ireland is still 3,890 kilometres. So still a massive goal for the average person. If you run 1,000 Ks a year, then it's still 5 years to get those done. But it was a step back from the 14,000, the 17,000 that I have for the other maps. So that now encompassed the world. And as such, I had to change the name and become Run the World. I still have the majority of people on Run Down Under, and people still refer to it as Run Down Under. But as time goes on, more and more people will be doing Run East Asia, Run the Great White North, Run the Longest Walk. So Run the World is the new branding, and it has been that for the year, and that will grow and become more common. So Run the World is basically that. I've given you the opportunity to run 127,500 kilometres across 9 maps. Now I said 8 maps before, there's a second Australia one. So there's 8 maps plus a bonus Australia one makes 9. 127,500 kilometres. It's a lot of distance. The average person sitting on the couch right now is going to be daunted by that. What I want you to do is look at a map and break it down. And that's how I treat Run the World. So when you join, you start your map in the city that we set. So I'm going to use Australia as the most common example. So you start in Canberra. Every time you run, you upload it to our app automatically through Strava, or if you're not a Strava user, you manually put it in on our app. Has to be a structured run, can't be step counting, has to be the idea where you get out and go for a run or walk. Record that, it'll move you that distance along the map. From Canberra, the first goal for you is to get to Goulburn. It's 90 kilometres away, and that is your first goal. You're not looking at 14,080, you're looking at Goulburn. When you get to Goulburn, you'll get an email, tell you about the history of the town, what's going on in Goulburn, have a list of your runs that you did to get there, You can go on the website and see how long it took you, compare other people that arrived in Goulburn, and then you set your sights for Bowral. And Bowral is another 85 kilometres away. That's your next goal. And then your first goal, which is a major milestone, is Sydney. And that is 286 kilometres away from the start line. So that's milestone 1 done. And I give a milestone, you get a mention in the newsletter that you've made it to the first milestone city. Then you look up ahead and you're on your way to Brisbane. There's 7 or 8 towns in between them, along the Central Coast, Byron Bay, Yamba, some great towns. You learn about the history of the towns, some holiday destinations along the way, and then you get to Brisbane. Catherine's next, Perth's next, Adelaide, Melbourne, a lap of Tasmania, and before you know it, you're on the East Coast and you're heading towards the finish line. And that 14,080 kilometres is now less than 1,000 k's to go as you make your way through Eden, Merimbula, where I grew up, and then up the coast to the finish line. It will take the average person, based on all my data over 10 years, 15 years to do it. And that's my goal. My goal is to keep you active and healthy through running and walking long term. It's not an 8-week challenge. It's not a 6-week challenge. It's something that I want you to do for life. Then when you finish that 14,080 kilometres, celebrate. I'll be there if I can. We'll put up the arch, and you should be proud of something that's massive. To run 14,000 k's is massive. Job not done. Change maps. You might want to go smaller. Let's go New Zealand. Let's do 4,710. But let's see if we can go a little bit quicker this year. Or let's see if we can do some more vert or some more elevation or some more races to get there. It's designed to keep you running, walking long term. If I can talk about me just very quickly, on my wall at home, I have every single map listed in the order that I want to do them and the age that I want to finish. I'll be 85 years old when I finish my last map. So that is my goal. It'll be 45 years worth of running and walking. It's a long-term goal that I'm excited about. And yes, I'm looking at 85, but I'm on my way to Bulawayo in Botswana. Well, I hope I got that right at the moment. And that's my next goal. I'm actually only 2 kilometres away. I should have done that this morning, but that's my next goal. Not looking to the 127,000, looking to my next town. So those of you watching and have just seen that I've run the 200 Ks and you think way beyond my expectations or limitations, go back to 2013 and my first entry on Run the World or Run Down Under back then was 8 kilometres and I titled it Long Run. And I remember picking up my car from my mate's place after a night on the grogs and I ran 8 kilometres and that was my long run. I'd never run further than a half marathon before. I, maybe like you, looked and thought, who would ever run a marathon? But I decided to do one. And I went from 21 to 22 to 30 to 42. And that was over the space of probably 18 months. My advice to anyone wanting to get into it is don't go 42 kilometres on your first day. You're not going to enjoy it. It's going to hurt. It's going to be horrible. Don't even enter a marathon as your first race. Find a park run and get 5K ticked off first. Progress. Don't look at your first race being a 100-miler. It's going to hurt you. It's going to give you probably some bad memories. Definitely have it as a goal down the track, but find some smaller bite-sized races that you can do, or not even races, just tick off 10K first and be comfortable with that. Then tick off the half marathon, then tick off and break it down. And you might get to the half marathon and be stuck there for months and think, I don't know if I can do 30, or I don't know if I want to do 30. Don't force yourself to do that 30, because if you don't enjoy it, next thing you know, you're back on the couch, eating the Tim Tams, and you're back to square one. Stay at that 21 for as long as it needs, and then progress to 22, and then think, well, maybe I can do 24, and then 30 will come. My stats were exactly that. I did my half marathon, did my first marathon, and I stuck at marathons for 4 years, and then decided to do a 50. And it wasn't even out of a real desire. I thought I just need to do a 50, and I didn't enjoy it as much. And I then went back to marathons, and then yet again went and did a 50, and then went back to marathons, and then found that I could do 50, and then decided to hit more and more. So I progressed. So I went backwards and forwards. Never did I think I was going to do 200 Ks. Never did I think I was going to run for 25 hours around a backyard ultra. It was never in my dreams, but progressively I found that I wanted to do it. I enjoy the long, slow stuff. So I progressed and I found what I love. My speed's not there anymore. I still go out and do a park run every now and again, but my passion lies for going long and slow. And if I have to walk, then I have to walk. And I found that through 10 years worth of progression. So my advice is find what you love. Don't do what you don't love, because it's gonna make you go back to the couch. If you don't wanna do a 30K straight away, stick with the half marathons and what you love. I'd rather you see yourself enjoying your running rather than it being a chore or something you're not enjoying. And you'll find what your distance is. You might never become an ultra runner. You might become a specialist half marathoner, and that is awesome, because 21Ks is a long way. Regardless of who you talk to, if I went down the shopping centre and pulled 1,000 people out of Westfield Shopping Centre, the amount of people that run 20Ks would be minute. So if you can do that, you're doing exceptionally well. So find what you love, progress slowly, and enjoy running.
Yeah, Trav Island, mate, you've only just begun, but you're looking strong, and you just keep pushing forward and stay in the zone. Mate, we're going to have a bit of fun later tonight when I get out with you. Your spack's on the bottom, can't wait.
I hear he's having a birthday tonight.
Yeah, we're going to have a big party. That's the only way to celebrate, isn't it? Just get out on the track and run around for hours and hours on end. That's the way we do it.
I don't think
Love you, mate.
you're allowed to hand it.
Hi, Kath. How's he going out there?
He's doing awesome. Yeah, really, really good. He's been Mr. Consistent in his training, so I think he's going to have a really good run. And if you don't know, it's actually Trav's birthday tomorrow. So, best birthday present ever, running 24 hours.
So you're trying to tell me that at midnight he's going to be cutting the cake?
Absolutely. Yes. Depending if it's all black or not.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, I'll be here for that.
Awesome.
We're super impressed. He's absolutely smashed it. And he's still smiling, so what else can you ask for? Brilliant.
Yeah, he's got high spirits at the moment, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How long to go now?
Not long. He's got 12 minutes.
12 minutes. We better start making some noise,
I think we will, yeah. Time to start screaming.
We're so, we can't express how proud we are of Trav, that he hasn't stopped all night and he's exceeded his goal. So, super impressed, super happy for you. Go Travie!
Hey guys, my name's Shane and I'm here today to support my good friend Travis. Travis is someone that I've been training with only just in the past year or so. He's an absolute weapon, and to find out that he was doing the 24-hour race, I was completely mind-blown. And I've come here to support him. Also, it helps that I just live around the corner. But the fact that I found out that Travis was only aiming for 190 kilometers and he just hit 200. How cool is that? What an absolute legend. Looking forward to giving him a big handshake and watching him enjoy the feeling.